my name's Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training, and we're going to be doing Dax's demonstration for you today. He is behind me in the crate, just hanging out. He's done just wonderful with his training. He really is a sweetheart. He's basically a big teddy bear, and I'm sure you guys are going to love him. And so today what we're going to cover is 5 phases of our program, or of his training that he's went through. The first thing we'll do is our manners. Then we'll show you his obedience commands. We'll talk about house training, crate training, and his leash training. And so before we get him out and do that, a couple things that I like to just talk about with everyone. First is our marker. So our marker is the word okay. And so when he hears that word, he knows that he has done something correctly, as well as he is released from a stay. And so generally, every time he hears that word, he knows that there is a reward coming. We do use 3 different types of rewards: a food reward, toys, as well as compassion. All 3 of those are very rewarding to Dax. Food definitely is the highest motivator, but he also just loves the tennis ball, so it's great to pull that out and play with him and have a good time. We also have a correction that is no or nope, just depending on the behavior that he is doing. Generally, if it's a command, I will tell him no, and I'll have him do it again, making sure that I always end on correct behavior. We also incorporate a leash correction, and that's just 2 pops on the leash, and that's just good to get his attention back on me, and then I can deliver a command or tell him what to do next. The other thing that's important to talk about is just this transition period that you're about to go through. So for any dog, the first 2 to 4 weeks into a new home is very stressful. It'll cause them to have a loose stool, they'll have to go to the bathroom more frequently. They also may just want to hide out for a couple days, just try and basically de-stress. So I like to leave the crate open when he's in a new place. That way he has his own space. He can go in, lay down, and just relax for a little bit and decompress. But now we're going to get him out. And so the first manner we'll talk about is his gates and his doorways. So anytime he goes through our house door or through the crate, I do expect him to stay. Should be an automatic behavior. Now if he were to break, I might simply close the door, block him with my leg. It wouldn't be unless he was really persistent on pushing his way out that I would actually tell him to wait. So we'll get him out. Okay, good boy. Good boy. And so I'll show you the house door when we go outside. But our next manner is anytime I call him to me, Dax, come here. Before I give him any attention, I expect him to sit. Oh, good boy. That's our greeting. What that does is first it gets his eye contact, so I know that I have his focus. Second, it keeps him from jumping. And so it just it gives him something to do when he approaches you. Now if he were to jump, I would tell him off. And if he were to try and jump up on me, I'd bring up my knee into his chest and tell him off. Just making sure that he's not able to get to my face, because that's where he's wanting to go. As well as if he starts wandering around, he doesn't present that greeting, he hasn't sat, I'll just fold my arms and kind of direct my attention away from him. That way he's going to be reading my body language, realize that I'm not giving him any attention, and he's going to try and figure out why. And a lot of times he'll just sit down in that situation. As well as off is used for if he were to try and jump up on the couch or up on a table, something like that, expect him to get down. That is a time that I also use a leash correction. If I'm walking and he wants to jump up, I'll just tell him off and I'll give him 2 pops on the leash. The next thing would be his mealtime manners. And so I'm going to give him about 1/4 of a cup of food. And I will ask for a sit-stay. So where he's already sitting, I'll just tell him, stay. Okay, good boy. Now I do spend some time handling him when he eats, just making sure that he's not food aggressive. He does swallow his food very quickly, and so he's done. But we also just spend some time handling him, making sure that there is no aggression. Good boy. And so that, come here. We'll put him up onto the bed for a second. But we handle his paws, his ears, his tail, just making sure that, you know, he's alright with being handled. He's not going to get defensive. He was a little bit shy when we first started training him, and so he's come out of his shell quite a bit, as well as he's just got a very even-tempered, and he's just a sweetheart. He really is. Good boy, huh? Now, like I said, we've worked on just making sure that there is no aggression. We haven't seen anything. All dogs, especially male dogs that are intact, there will be some dominance when he's around other dogs, and so that is to be expected. But we also just make sure that I don't want any accidents to happen, especially with kids. Kids are like the greatest thing to a dog. They run around, they squeal. It's just a lot of fun for your dog to want to play along. And so if kids play with my dog, they have to have a toy. That way, if they're running, it kind of directs him towards something, as well as if he is going to grab on, instead of it being a pant leg or an arm, it's a toy. And if they get nervous, they can just throw the toy and direct him away. Now, when it comes to toys, like I said, tennis balls is definitely his favorite. He will play with the soft toy occasionally, but if you have a tennis ball, he will just go wild for it. Good boy, huh? Good boy. Now, we have also taught him to drop it on command, and so I'll grab a tennis ball because it's a little easier for you to see. And like I said, he loves the tennis ball. So when he gets back with it, I'll just ask him to drop it. Oh, you didn't. Where'd you go? Oh, you already dropped it. My bad. Sorry, buddy. So a lot of times he will drop it just as soon as I stick my hand down there. But if he has a hold of it, I can just tell him, there you go. Which he just knows that he's supposed to. But if he has anything, expect him to drop it on command. If he ever has something that he doesn't want to give up, all you gotta do is stick your finger right behind his canines and push on his tongue. He'll open his mouth as wide as he can because, well, he just doesn't like you pushing on his tongue. Now, we've also taught him to be very gentle with his mouth. And so anytime I give him a treat, I will give it in the palm of my hand, as well as I will just tell him gently and expect him to be very cautious. That way I'm not getting any teeth, anything like that. Let's see. So, chewing is another behavior that we work on. The best way to prevent chewing, especially in a new environment, is by training on a base of avoiding and replacing. If I can avoid giving him free access to toys, to shoes, to anything you don't want him to chew on, of course that's the best way to prevent an accident from happening. However, it's never possible in your house. There's always something he is going to have access to. Come here, buddy. You just want something there. And so that's where replacing comes in. And so if I saw him go up and he started chewing on something soft, maybe a soft bed or a pillow, I would tell him no, and I'd replace it with something soft. That way you're kind of meeting the needs of his mouth. You're replacing based on texture. And so if he wants to chew on a table leg, I'll give him a bully stick. If he wants to chew on shoelaces, I'll give him a rope. Just try and match his needs. Now, boredom is definitely the main cause of chewing. And so if he does have just a downtime, maybe you're reading a book, watching a show, I just like to give him something to chew on. That way he is preoccupied and he's not going to go find something he's not supposed to. So that concludes our manners portion. Now we will move into his obedience commands. So now moving on to his obedience commands. The first two that we teach him are basically a recall, as well as to get his attention. A dog basically has a single track mind, and so whatever he's focused on, or whatever he's looking at, that's what he's going to be focused on. And so if I can break that focus and get him to look at me, I know that that attention's going to shift. And so the first one that we teach him is just to get eye contact. And if I can get him to look away, and I can even stick the treat right out here in front of him. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And I'm just going to look for eye contact. Once I get that eye contact, I'll mark it very quickly, tell him okay. And like I said, that's basically just a break contact. As well as it's kind of a backup to come. If he's chasing after something, he's not going to follow through with a recall. I do work on come a lot, as well as there's always a food reward, and so that way it should just be a very positive experience. And so when he hears it, he's going to quickly come back or come running over because he knows that there is food involved. He's going to get a reward. And it's an easy one to practice, just like that. I mean, you can direct his attention away. Watch me. Okay, good boy. And mark that behavior. The second one is that recall, so it's a come command. Kind of hard to show in here. We'll have to go outside and show you that. But that's one that we spent a ton of time on. When we first got him, he loved to go out and run. Just as soon as he got let off leash, he was gone, just running. And so we spent a ton of time on that recall. And so it's a very, very important command. In fact, it's probably your most important command. So when I do it, I'll just tell him, Dax, come! Okay, good boy. Now, in general, if you're inside and you are maybe 3 feet away, kind of like what I just did, you don't need to call him to come, just don't. That way you preserve that command. Instead, if we're this far apart, I'll just, come here, something like that. He'll come over to me, go and get him. That way you're not overusing that command, and he's going to get just too used to it to where he doesn't want to follow through anymore. The other thing is that's a great one to work on. Go take a long leash, go out in the park, let him get 20, 30 feet away sniffing, call him to come. If he doesn't immediately come, you can reel him in with that leash, give him a reward, let him go again. And I like to keep basically a repetition of 10 to 1. Make sure that when you're working on it, I'll call him back to me 10 times just to give him a reward and let him go again for that one time I call him to come, and maybe we're leaving the park or it's time to go inside, maybe go into the crate. You just want to keep that very, very positive. So the next 4 of our commands have hand signals. And so the first is sit. Sit is a scoop over the nose. I'll just lure it right up over. Down, I'll take my hand flat and go to the ground, and then stay is a stop sign. Now we have both a sit and a down stay. If he's in a down stay, he's never allowed to come up. However, if he's in a sit stay, I don't care if he lays down. And so I'll show you that right here. Come here. Come here. So sit, up over the nose. Down, I'll come down in front of his nose. And then stay. Now he has good stays. Right now we're above 30 seconds. But don't be satisfied with them. If you continue to work on that, it's very easy to get a dog to stay in one place for upwards of an hour. Nope. Come here. And if he breaks like that, I'm going to have him do it again. Down. Stay. Now I may also just ease the distraction. Sometimes talking too much is a distraction. Also how he just ran into the crate. He was trying to guess what I wanted him to do next. And so instead I'll lessen my talking as well as I'll remove myself from being next to the crate. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now I'll show you that sit, stay. Come here. I'll spin him around right here. Sit, stay. Okay, good boy. Good boy. Good boy. Now the next 2 commands don't necessarily have hand signals, but I always put myself in a position where he can read my body language. And so for instance, the crate command, all I gotta do is come over here and stand by it, and I'll tell him, Dax, crate. And he'll go in. Good boy. I also treat that command very similar, okay, to the come command. I want to keep it positive. I don't want to just use it anytime I'm going to lock him up. Otherwise, he'll start getting, he gets a little suspicious that, well, if she tells me to go in the crate, she's going to close the door and be locked up, so instead I'm going to turn around the other direction. And so I'll practice that one various times throughout the day. Just have him running in and out. Dax, crate. Good boy. Good boy. Give him a reward when he goes in, and then where he is expected to stay, I'll just release him. Okay, good boy. Very similar to that, if I want him to go onto his bed, I'll just tell him, go to bed. Dax, go to bed. There you go. When I ask him to go on his bed, I don't care what position he's in as long as all 4 paws are on the bed and he is expected to stay until released. Now before I release him, I'll show you our last command, which it's going to be used more so if you're on a walk, but we have taught him to leave it. And so instead, I'll just tell him, I'll show him that I have this treat, leave it, and expect him just to ignore it. Okay, good boy, good boy, good boy. And then I can take it away. I just want him to completely ignore whatever it is, and then he knows that if I tell him, okay, the treat's coming from me, he's still not allowed to pick whatever it is up off the ground. So, we'll talk about crate training just for a few minutes, and then we'll move into our house training. So we spent a ton of time making sure that he is comfortable in the crate. He will sleep through the night, 8 hours, as well as he will go at least 4 hours during the day. Now he's getting old enough that he can hold his bladder for quite a while, and so he just does great in the crate. He doesn't whine, he'll just go in there, lay down, and go to sleep. Occasionally he will paw the door. Usually that's when we first put him in, and you know, that's pretty common. They don't want to go inside, they're enjoying being around you. And it's especially common with a new puppy or a new dog when you bring him home. And so if he does start to whine a little bit or paw the door, just go over, maybe give him a treat, tell him hush, and then ignore him. But never let him out if he's doing that. As well as he'll stand up and he'll start really whining if he does need to go to the bathroom. But you can expect him to be good in there through the night. So, oh buddy. But you can see he really is just a sweetheart of a dog. So, oh, good boy. So the house training now, we've spent a ton of time in here, as well as at one of my trainer's house, just really working on the house training. We've taught him to ring a bell when he needs to go to the bathroom. Now, like I said, he is old enough that he can hold himself for a long time, and so he might just outlast, you basically. If you let him out in the morning, he might not have to go again until you need to leave somewhere, so you can give him a break that way. But he does know the bell. He will ring it if he really needs to go, and maybe you haven't let him out in a while. And so the way that you transition that is we call it free shaping. And we're going to skip a step where he's a little bit older, and I'll just go right to the door, and I'll call him over, and I'm just going to stare at the bells, and he's going to read my body language and start to sniff them. Okay, and when he hits it, I'll mark it. And I'm just going to let him start ringing the bell. Okay, outside. And he is expected to wait at the doorway. Okay, good boy. Okay. Now I will give him about a minute or two to sniff around to see if he finds a spot and go to the bathroom. Like I said, he will hold it a long, long time. I can promise you that. However, when you get him home, you want to make sure that he understands the bell. And so what I like to do is I'll walk over, have him ring the bell, I'll take him outside, give him a minute or two to go to the bathroom. If he doesn't, we'll just come right back in. I'll wait another hour, and then I'll take him over, have him ring the bell, go outside again. If he doesn't, come right back in. Wait another hour. Now, when he does go to the bathroom, especially if it's where you want him to go, you gotta be really positive. Tell him, okay, good outside, good boy. Pet him, make it known that he is doing the right thing, that it's very positive, that that's what you expect for him. Now, as bringing a new dog into your home, there's a couple of things to remember, especially as you're transitioning his house training. The first is that you have to have 100% supervision. He is not allowed to just roam your home. He's either tethered right where you are, he's in the crate, or you are petting him, playing with him, working with him, something like that. But he is always under direct supervision. You don't want to give him the opportunity to sneak away, maybe get lost in your home, and then have an accident. And I would do that for the first at least month. Just make sure that you always have an eye on him or he's in the crate. And that way, like I said, there's just no possibilities for accidents. Now, a couple behaviors to look for. If he starts sniffing really heavily, I would take him over, have him ring the bell, take him outside. If he starts doing circles, get him outside quick. If he starts panting and maybe he just had a drink, sometimes that means that he just really has to go. The other thing that I like to do is I like to have him drag a short leash around, and that way if for some reason he does start to squat, you can just grab it and go. If you're interested in the progression of how we got him to ring the bell and kind of that whole house training kind of sequence, you can go and watch some of my videos that I've done for demonstrations with my young puppies that I send home, and that goes through just the whole progression of it. So, and if you do have any questions, call Susan, she'll answer them for you. Now we will go outside and show you his leash work. So we've taught him to walk by our side, having a loose leash. He does like to sniff quite a bit, and so when he does that, we do have a command that I'll tell him easy if he starts to pull. If that nose starts taking him somewhere, I'll stop, give him 2 pops on the leash, tell him easy, expect him to pick his head up. The other command is let's go, just signifying we're moving. And so yeah, we'll go outside and show you that. So when I do start this type of walk, I like to ask him to sit. That way I know that I have his attention, he's focused on me, and then I'll just tell him, let's go. Oh, there you go, let's go, good boy. I do expect this loose leash. He shouldn't be pulling against me. As well as when I turn, I'll tell him, let's go. Let's go. Now, if he were to start to pull against me, I would just tell him, easy, and expect him to stop. At least put that slack back in the leash. So, that's Dax for you. He's been a wonderful dog. I'm sure you guys are excited to get him. And let us know if you have any questions. Thanks. Good boy. Let's go.